We're going to do a demonstration of exploring the network for somebody who's looking for help for an alcohol problem. Duncan is going to role play that person. Duncan, tell us a couple of sentences about the person you're going to role play.
Okay, so I'm going to be a middle-aged man. I'm going to be living alone. I'm going to be a problem drinker, probably drinking something like 8 or 10 pints of beer or the equivalent in a day.
Okay, let's get going and see what this might look like. So Duncan, you've told me that you are living on your own, drinking 8 to 10 pints a day. And during the pandemic, you've been doing that by yourself, and that you've come here for help because you're wanting to do something about your drinking, and you have thought that in the short term, that's going to involve stopping drinking altogether.
Well, maybe. I'm not sure about stopping, but let's see about that.
Okay, and when you say see about it,
well, I think you suggested that was probably the best way to go, at least in the short term. So let's do that.
So we're talking about kind of right from practically now, what are we going to be doing? And we're going to be looking at who are the people who are able to be there to help you. So just let's look at who you've got when you think about the people that you are in touch with, that you're close to, who you think might want to help you with this. And then as we go through them, we can explore some of the criteria, some of the things that we want them to be like in order to be able to do this. So who's the first person who springs to mind?
Well, really nobody springs to mind, because I think most of the people I know have sort of helped in the past, and they've maybe had enough, which is why I'm sort of a bit on my own now. But I've got, well, there's my ex-wife, of course. You know about her. I mean, we're still kind of friendly, but she's probably more than anybody. She's had enough of my drinking and promising to stop. And she helps me with getting to AA groups, but then I didn't keep that up. My son actually lives nearby, and but we don't really have very much contact because he's got a family and he's got a job, and so he's pretty tied up with all of that kind of stuff. My best friend is not been too well of late, but my best friend doesn't live that far away either. Well, quite close actually.
Okay. So we've got those people in mind, and maybe one of the ways to look at their suitability is thinking about, if you were to say that you're going to stop drinking in the very short term, we could say, you're thinking about stopping drinking for a few weeks. Let's make this something that we can really, imagine the next few weeks. What kind of help would you need in order to do that? And think about kind of the whole thing. What kind of help would you need?
I guess the biggest problem is just not having a drink in the morning when I get up, because usually I feel pretty awful, a bit shaky usually, and I haven't really done a lot in the way of getting food into the house and so on. So mainly I just have a drink in the morning, and that sort of gets me sorted out. Be pretty difficult to get around that habit, I suppose.
Okay, do you have any ideas of what might help?
Yeah, somebody could just lock me in the house and wait till I get over it, I suppose.
Okay, people often say that. Any other ideas? Anybody you know who's had any help for that very initial, those
Well, I know sometimes people get medication.
right.
That could help.
And that
Or maybe just, a bit cutting down slowly. But I know you're not very keen on that idea. But
okay, so there are basically what you're describing is helping you to get the alcohol out of your system. So there are two ways to do that. There's the cutting down gradually, which is something really people need a lot of support for. And then there's the medication route, which tends to be quicker, tends to be safer. You also need support for that. So if we can find the support for that, that might be the easier route to take. So that you're really looking at somebody who could, in one way or the other, be there for you from the morning to ensure, let's suppose that you were taking medication, to ensure that you were taking the medication and then doing the things that you've alluded to, eating breakfast and getting on with something else during the day. Okay, so that's one set of things that you will need support for. So let's
yes,
go on.
if somebody could do that, I can't think who would be good for that. Actually, maybe just thinking now, maybe my neighbour would pop around each morning. They're quite well, I know them quite well, actually. I don't know whether they'd like that or.
Tell me about this neighbour.
Well, they're a couple. I mean, we don't know each other terribly well, but we, exchange pleasantries in if we see each other and talk in the street if we meet up. But we don't go around to each other's houses normally. But
And what about
maybe they're not such a good idea, mate. Maybe my son would call in on his way to, no, that'd be too early. Or my ex-wife might be willing to phone and have a chat.
okay, what would be in it for her to do that?
Well, as I say, we're still quite chums. We're still on friendly terms, thankfully. That's a possibility that she would do that. There's nothing in it for her, as you put it, really, apart from being nice.
Or the fact that she cares about you.
She cares about me still, yeah.
She cares about you, and you're the father of your son, your shared son, and all of that. So she might be a person you could discuss that with. If you were to discuss that with her, how would you put it to her? What would you be saying to her?
I'd be saying, guess what? I'm going to stop drinking again. And she'd probably groan a lot at that. But once we got over that, I'd say I'm really serious this time. And I'm getting some help from a new therapist. So I really want to do it, but it would really help if maybe you would just be willing to phone me every morning for, say, the first week. Something like that I could try.
Okay. And
see how she responded to the idea I was giving up again first.
Yeah. And I'm wondering about suggesting to her that we could have a conversation together about it, so that she would feel that she was not being relied upon by herself, but she would have some sense of my supporting her to support you, and you including her in this network, so that she would feel more part of a team rather than perhaps that it's falling on her shoulders, it's falling to her to be the person.
Yeah, she might well do that. She works for the university, so she's working from home and has Zoom calls all the time. So slotting another Zoom call in might not be a problem for her at all.
But this would be a new thing for her, as far as, you know, saying, how is this going to be different this time? This would be a new thing.
Yes, it would.
I think there's another aspect that we might be considering in order to encourage her to want to be part of this, that we're saying we're looking for help in the short term, and we're also looking for some help in the longer term, which we can include under a general heading of lifestyle changes. You're wanting to make some lifestyle changes, and for you, these are going to be quite big lifestyle changes, and that we're really describing to her that in order to do that bit, we're going to be extending this support network to look for other people to bring in who will be involved in supporting those longer term lifestyle changes, which we can come back to.
Yes, well, she might be up for that. I don't know. We'd have to talk to her. Probably my son's a better bet for keeping in touch longer term.
Okay. So you're thinking that this is something you could put to her, and you're thinking that possibly the idea that this is short term, but we have a plan to go on to in the longer term that could include her if she wanted, but doesn't need to include her, might help to strengthen the case for her to give
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. If we can pause there.